S24 Ultra is Samsung's most powerful and best smartphone on the market today, and the iPad Pro 11 M4 is the most powerful Apple device ever created in terms of their touch-based iPad OS. Let's go ahead and begin with a boot up on both phones here, or phones or tablet here, in 3, 2, go, and see which one can get there first. Now keep in mind that the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 is a super powerful mobile chip as well. Both of these are on the ARM architecture, but the Samsung phone has a boost because they work with, Snapdragon for the Galaxy version of this chip. Also 12 gigs of RAM, Android 14, One UI 6.1, but the iPad said, shut up, Nick. I'm faster. I'm booting up quicker. Okay, and so when it comes to biometrics, we do have the Face Unlock just like that. You can bypass the lock screen and the Samsung is in. Also, unlike the iPad Pro, you do have a fingerprint sensor. If you go with the iPad Air, you'll get a fingerprint sensor, but you don't get Face ID. So even on iPads, you're kind of limited in the way you unlock, although it's pretty convenient to just unlock with Face ID here. And because the iPad is kind of wide, you're almost never going to miss the Face Unlock because you're not likely to have this on a weird angle like an iPhone. So the Face Unlock Face ID is incredibly accurate and basically flawless every single time on the iPad. Whereas I have had a couple times where the Samsung couldn't recognize my face and I could miss the fingerprint. So I would say consistency probably a little better on the iPad, but speed-wise, the Samsung is quicker. When it comes to swiping through these products here, you basically have the same type of experience because on the iPad, you do have a 120 hertz, but on the Samsung, you also have a 120 hertz. And again, if you plug this into an external monitor or a DeX, the Samsung becomes basically a tablet computer-like thing. Well, not really a tablet, but becomes like a desktop. So you can do a lot there. 120 hertz though, pretty much the same across the board. So for Galaxy, we're looking at Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. You can see those clock speeds are pretty darn high on this phone. 3.4 gigahertz on that fourth cluster, 3.15, 2.9. So these are up there in the clock speed. Now over here for the iPad though, you can see that thing's clocked at 4.40 gigahertz. So that's higher than even the highest cluster on the Samsung. So I wonder if that's going to make a big difference in the area of gaming and stuff like that, but a little bit less RAM. Let's see if that plays in the RAM management department. All right, guys. So here we do have both phones and tablet lined up with the same every app closed. What's cool with the Samsung is I can have a same grid. I can have the same grid as like on the iPad. So it's equally set up here. Let's go into calendar on both. And you can see, was that the Samsung with a faster animation? Let's go into clock here. I think the Samsung, just like the iPhone, has a faster animation. Let's go into timers. And we'll go into world clock. Pretty much the same. Let's go into weather. And I think Samsung was faster. Again, we are going to be loading a little more content on the bigger iPad screen, so that could make the difference. But let's go into Play Store. You could see right there, faster on the left for the Play Store. But if the M4 is that much powerful, it should even beat the Samsung, regardless if it's loading more content. Let's go into Instagram. And almost the same. Look at Instagram looking absolutely giant on the right. Swipe up out of there. We'll go into Twitter or X. So to me, I feel like the iPad and the Samsung is faster on the left. I feel like the Samsung is a little tablet-like phone with its shape, its size. Let's go into eBay. And it can be your only device because of DeX, mostly. But the iPad can be your only device if you don't want to use, it's probably not going to be your only device unless you want to use cellular, an iPad mini, because like a bigger Pro like this might not work. But the iPad Pro can be your main like computing device for most tasks, and then you just use your phone to make calls and stuff like that. So, or you can just get a Google Voice number and you can just use an iPad for everything. Let's go into Starbucks. Not likely though. Most people are going to have the combo of an iPad and a phone. But I just kind of feel like with these super large S24 Ultras and ultra size phones, do we really need a tablet is the question. I feel like a tablet's that in between, like Steve Jobs used to talk about. It has to be better than a phone, and it has to be better than a laptop at certain tasks. And what I think it still does really well is just kind of like consuming media, browsing the web. It does those tasks very efficiently and very well. So let's go into Groupon. that was faster on the iPad, but that one looked like it wasn't like loaded properly. Let me go ahead and run Groupon again. Also, the way that the iPad does that multitasking, you can actually get that, like this type of like look with the recent apps, you can get that with the good lock module on the Samsung. Let's go into Amazon. Oh my God, I messed that one up. Now I got to open that so it's not in cache. My bad, my bad. I'm only human. Let's go into Amazon, and now we're equal here. iPad loaded that first, even with the content being more display. Let's go into Subway Surfers, and you can see boom, 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 boom on the right. Honestly, the way if you really dive deep into the S24 Ultra, you can actually turn it into like the same scaling as like a tablet, and you can like do most of the same things, although it's more crammed on a phone screen. But this iPad is just a beautiful OLED display, a beautiful performer, faster on the Samsung. When actually in the game here though, you're gonna see very good performance on both. Over here for the iPad, very, very smooth, buttery smooth performance as well right there. All right, so let's go into Temple Run 2 now and see what we get here. And it looks to me like we have a win to the iPad. So the iPad jumping out ahead here in these games, except for that one I think was on the Samsung, but jumping out in front here. Let's go into Free Fire, proving that it's probably the more powerful device. But see the benchmarks, here we go. Blowing the Samsung out of the water here. Okay, all right. Again, proving what I talked about before with this iPad. This is the gaming monster. That's what it is. It's a gaming monster, a video editing machine beast. If you like doing video editing on a mobile platform like iPad OS. Where's Samsung at? We're still not there. We could have already been into the next app, unless I have to hit guest. Do I have to hit guest? I guess I have to hit guest. Yeah, so the Samsung was quite a bit behind. Let's go into PUBG Mobile. And keep in mind, though, that the Samsung phone is actually more than this iPad. It costs more. It's like $11.99, $12.99, something like that. It's about $100 or $200 more. Actually, the Samsung is closer to the price of the 13-inch iPad Pro, just for the phone. Of course, it does have a cellular connection. You could take it everywhere you go, but still, I mean, much bigger screen. You could get the iPad Pro for the same price and get a cheaper phone just for phone use. You know, these are the kind of ideas I think about. Let's go into Genshin Impact. Let's see which one can launch this baby first. This one is definitely a little more intensive. It's going to need a little more power to go ahead and get in. And I do think this one's going to go to the Apple device. We're going to hit start game here. And we'll hit start game here. So yeah, the Apple device showing, this iPad Pro is showing its prowess when it comes to the seriously intensive stuff. Again, how far are you going to push your iPad? M2 can do this pretty well as well. So you don't actually have to get this really good performance. And you can see there's going to be no frame delays here. It's logging me out because I'm in another device now. But you've seen basically no frame delays there. Samsung taking much longer here on Genshin. Although there's not really any issues playing here as well for the Samsung. So if you are kind of like playing this game here, you're not going to get a lot of frame rate drops or nothing like that. The Samsung has less area to spread out the heat, so the thermals will probably be better on a iPad. If you want to do gaming, keep that in mind. And a much more expansive screen means probably a better experience, if I'm being really honest. Let's go into speedtest.net here, faster on the iPad, and 3D Mark, faster on the iPad, and Geekbench 6, faster on the Samsung, and InShot, faster on the Samsung. We had a pop-up, so let me do that one more time for good measure. And we'll go ahead and go into InShot, about the same, so similar. Overall, I would say the Samsung lost this test, and it's mostly because when it really pushed into Genshin and stuff like that, PUBG, Free Fire, everything started loading a little faster on the iPad. Some apps are still snappier on the Samsung, and the Samsung is right there. So if you want a phone that could do it all, the Samsung is a really good option here. If you want one product that can do it all around the house, you know, maybe on the go, and you don't want to spend as much for a phone, an iPad could be a great investment as well. Let's go ahead and check the RAM management now. All right, so let's see how the Samsung does holding these applications. 12 gigs of RAM. I turned off the deep sleep app mode so it doesn't like do that. It was reconnecting to the server there. That's not a reload. Let's go into Free Fire. Pretty good there. Temple Run. There's a little blink. I don't know what that blink action is. Every app is like blinking. I don't know what that is, but no reload so far. Holding everything very well. And we'll go into Best Buy. Looking great. Yeah, the Samsung is really improved over the years before. Flawless. So I'm telling you, if there's one phone that can do it all, S Pen, put as many apps on the home screen as you want, tons of multitasking, plug this into a monitor. The S24 Ultra is a super do-it-all device. It really is. All right, let's take a look at the iPad. And one thing I noticed right away is that the animations look better. They have a smoother appearance to them than the Samsung. I mean, it has to flip because it's a landscape-based product. It's really designed to be used mostly in landscape. Although the portrait mode is quite nice as well. It's got kind of a nice aspect ratio. It doesn't feel super tall like a lot of those other tablets out there. Issue though is that the Samsung tablets are much better for consuming content because they have less black bars, more close to the actual aspect ratio was shot in, but in the portrait mode is quite nice. You've seen just how smooth the animations look. I still think Samsung could do a little work there. They're really good. I mean, it's much better than before, but I still feel like Apple has just slightly more visually pleasing animations. I think they can get just a little smoother, and then Samsung is just going to be at the same exact level, maybe overtake them there in that department. All right, so the final score is in on Geekbench 6 for the iPad Pro M4. Look at this multi-core, 1339. This is 13339, excuse me. This is massive. Look at that single core. That single core is better than like some multi-core scores on certain phones. Blowing away the competition here. And the second fastest is, funny enough, the iPhone 15 Pro with the A17 Pro chip. We'll go over here to multi-core, and then you'll see the iPad Pro with M2, the one we did in our previous speed test with the iPad, was the second closest in the multi-core score. So if you want to get an M2 based device, that's going to be your best bet. You can see the Samsung is just about to finish up, but you see how much longer it took? That's probably proof right there that this is much more powerful. Look at that comparison though in the results. Doubling the multi-core score, doubling. Does this matter for day-to-day? Not really. Will it matter in heavier gaming sessions? Yes, I do think under a long gaming session where you even want to buy the thumb grips, like you're playing for a long time, you're probably going to love the iPad more. Also bigger screen. If you are going to render out content and kind of do everything, that multi-core score is going to be massive. But the Samsung is still a really impressive score for a smartphone. It's going to really do quite well. Let's go ahead now and check the graphics. So we're in the middle of the Wildlife Extreme. This is a 1-minute test testing graphics. Not the most stressful test I can do on them, but it is a good measure because I can already see just in the section right here that the graphics look like twice as smooth as the Samsung. We're nearly doubling at 60 FPS, but it's really hard to explain it on camera. I'm not sure if it's picking up, but it just looks so smooth here on the iPad, while definitely a lot slower, acceptable, not bad at all. On the Samsung, it's usable. I'm not going to be mad. It's very good, but it just looks out of this world on the iPad. So if you do want to play graphically intensive games, you're going to be absolutely floored by how good they look on the iPad, especially if the application supports it, like a Resident Evil type game or something like that. You're going to be floored by the graphics. You really are. 51.2 FPS average, 85.57. The Samsung, just like I was saying, it looked about twice as fast. It was 25.61 average frames. Now that's not a bad score. That blows away some of the competition, most of it actually. But you can see this score is better than 90% of devices. This scoring better than 98% of devices, which blew me away initially. Now I know what it gets. I'm not as blown away anymore, but I'm still blown away that this freaking thing right here is scoring better than 98% of the market. So I think it's safe to say the iPad has taken down the S24 Ultra as well. Although the S24 Ultra is very respectable, it can't touch this M4 CPU. It just can't. So a quick browsing test. We're going to go to apple.com, 3, 2, go. And you could see that was faster on the iPad. We'll hit learn more on the MacBook Air. Maybe a little faster. I would think it was on the left. Again, loading up more content on the iPad. And let's go ahead now and hop into the speedtest.net. We'll run this first to see what we pull in. And then I'll go ahead and make sure we get this on the same server here. So let's change this server. We'll go to Highline. It's the same one on here. Make sure that's correct again. And you see we're pulling around 406 FPS, or not FPS, Mbps on this test. Similar to my usual, we're getting about 24 on the upload, and we're going to probably finish in at around 23.4. Let's see if the iPad pulls in better Wi-Fi speed. Again, connected to the same exact network. So far pulling in a little bit better Wi-Fi. Now coming down, coming closer. I feel like one of those people at the auctions. I swear. 500 down. 550. 600. Oh my goodness. 600 on the download. Same Wi-Fi network. Is the iPad pulling in faster Wi-Fi? Don't tell me, oh, it's just your network. No, it's the same network on both. Similar on the upload. Yeah, this is pretty crazy. How much better it was on the download. I wonder what that was. So that's going to wrap it up. The Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra, one of the most powerful Android phones ever made, and still one of the most powerful, versatile phones you could buy today. It's still more than enough power than anybody needs on a smartphone, so it's still super recommended. But in terms of sheer performance, the iPad, when we really got down to the nitty gritty in the 3D Mark, the Geekbench 6, it kind of stomped on the S24 Ultra. So again, taking the victory. I don't think there's any product, not just phones, tablets, laptops maybe. There's not a lot that are going to beat this iPad Pro. This thing is an absolute powerhouse. And we've said this before, but I mean it this time. This is like absurd levels of performance. We already thought the M2 was that, but where are we going to be with the M6, the M8, like these chips in the future? It's going to be mind-boggling. It's kind of already getting to that point. So thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And stay tuned because I'm going to compare the Tab S9 Ultra to the 13-inch iPad Pro in an upcoming performance test. So you might want to be subscribed for that. I'll catch you on the next one. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.